Okay, so welcome to the September 11th, 2025 SIG Network meeting. This meeting abides by the CNCF code of conduct, which is kind of boils down to be nice to folks, don't be a jerk. To start off with, we will do triage. So let me just open this up. Hopefully this does not crash my computer. And I took a look at the triage items. There just seems to be one, which is, I think, if this is the only one, we could go and look at the older ones. This is around key-proxy IPVS mode. Has anyone been able to take a look at this one? I haven't been able to go through the entire thing.
It's another one of those, yeah, we're not really maintaining IPVS anymore ones. And I commented at the bottom, so. But basically they're asking for a re-architecting of the IPVS backend.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Given the state of IPVS, like, is it worth discussing deprecating it at some point if this is the only comment that we're going to be able to do?
And in fact, Adrian just pushed a PR for the KEP to deprecate it.
Interesting. I see. We're formally deprecating it soon. Do we know if it's going to be this release or next release? Like, what's the target?
Target is 135.
Got it.
So typically deprecation in Kubernetes means we tell people don't use it, but we keep it around. And I assume that that's what we mean here. The question is, I mean, that's easy for a small thing. It's much more complicated when you're talking about something as large as the IPVS proxier. So I haven't seen this KEP yet, but we should have a very serious conversation about deprecating, like, with prejudice.
Right, and like, what happens to the code? Like, does it get copied out to somewhere else, or?
I mean, rotten code is more of a liability than no code, right? At some point.
Yes.
I should say, for the record here, anybody who's here or was watching the recording of this, if you are interested in IPVS and you want to help keep it even just on life support, please speak up.
Yeah, contributions always welcome. Okay, so I expanded the filter.
Just on the IPVS thing. So Dan has a KEP, which I think is going to try and describe the removal of IPVS and the intertwinedness with NF tables. I think people with older kernels can't use NF tables, but if they're using IPVS, they need newer kernels to move to NF tables, which solves all their problems. So the KEP I've worked on is simply deprecated in 135. In other words, probably spit out a warning when kube-proxy starts and then update the website saying deprecated. All the hard problems of how do we remove it is in Dan's KEP. And I think, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a good path forward yet, but that's the purpose of your KEP, is to figure out that path forward. And the idea with splitting it out was so that we could mark IPVS as deprecated as soon as possible to kind of start the ball rolling while we figure out what that path looks like.
I think that the wording is what confuses. I think that what you're doing is freezing IPVS officially, and what Dan is creating is from this frozen state, how can we remove this from the code base if it's possible? Is that correct, Dan and Adrian? I think that this is a notification only, what Adrian is doing this release, right?
So yeah, I started this KEP last release cycle and it didn't get reviewed in time, so it didn't make any progress. And it's kind of a big, oh, what are we, like Tim was saying, what are we going to do with the code long term and all that stuff. And then meanwhile, we kept having all these IPVS bugs that we weren't doing anything with. And Tim Bannister got sort of annoyed with us. He's like, you can't tell people, you're not fixing bugs. It's not deprecated. It's officially supported. And so we realized, okay, we should make a a KEP just to deal with declaring IPVS to be deprecated officially, while we are figuring out the larger problem of what exactly we're going to do with the code long term.
But to be clear with everybody, deprecating here means we are going to freeze development and the code and the IPVS will keep working. So we can say people, look, we notify everyone that we are not going to maintain this anymore.
That's my understanding, yes.
I would say step one is it's on life support. Like if there's a massive security issue or something, we will make efforts to try to resolve it, but we're not adding features, we're not improving performance, we're not, making cosmetic changes.
Didn't we make the same thing with user space proxy when we deprecated?
So user space proxy was more or less deprecated as of, I think it was Kubernetes 1.1, and it took us forever to actually get rid of it, but nobody was using it and nobody cared. So it was a simpler problem.
Okay.
Okay. I think it sounds like we have a couple of KEPs and kind of things in progress. So maybe we can move on to look at the other triage. I got rid of the no assignee because I see some that probably we should just accept triage. And then also poke around in them. So I saw this one at the bottom that is still marked needs triage. Add TCP HTTP network request to CRA API. Antonio, is this one just accept? Or
This is the one related to the props that Surya was working, right? So if you scroll down, it has to be linked to the SunCap.
Okay, so should we just say triage accepted? It looks like it's just popping up again.
I don't know. We have arguments about this. I'm fine with whatever you said. This was on the props since on the prop cap that Surya was doing.
Does this already have an assignee?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
If this needs help with an assignee to take it forward, you can assign it to me.
I mean, I think
there are a lot of them.
Oh,
I
never
think
mind.
it's the right thing to do, but I think it's pretty complicated in terms of coordinating across a bunch of different groups. Anytime you do something in CRI, it means you have to get Containerd and Cryo to do it, and then wait for their rollouts, and then you can start using it in CRI. Like, I think we should probably do this, but it's not going to be satisfying in the way that just changing Kubernetes is.
Okay, so Surya, I made you an assignee. At the very least, it would just clear it out from the triage list because it seems like we had a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah, I think this is also one of the alternatives that we've listed in the KEP. So I'll work on ensuring that this is linked to the KEP.
Okay, next I'm going to go through a couple of these. Just look at this one, see what the activity is. So this is I think this one, the pod in the host network will have contents. This one we asked for more information. Looks like they haven't replied.
We can wait another cycle.
Yeah, one more ping, one more cycle, and then it gets nixed.
Let's look at this. The next one. Refactoring kubeproxy code.
So he has a PR for this as well already, so we should probably just triage accept it.
Great. Okay,
And
this
wait
one.
a second to make
Kubeproxy
sure
IP
that was
tables.
actually the right thing, because I can never remember if it's triage accept or triage accepted.
Yes, you're right. It just complained.
Should make an alias so they both work.
Okay, key proxy IP tables uses interface addresses. Antonio, looks like you were looking at this one.
Yeah, but I don't know where we ended. This was a complex environment.
Let's see what. Okay, so Dan.
They have a complex environment and what's complaining about and that. Okay, it seems that it's waiting for me. I will follow.
Okay. All right. We have 3 more minutes. Let's just go through this one. DNS latency when a core DNS pod is deleted.
Yeah, so I actually started looking at this one, but earlier in the conversation, Antonio said, isn't it this other issue that's been filed? And after looking at it, I came to the same conclusion. So I think this is a dupe of another one.
Just try to link it.
Yeah, I don't know if I linked it at the bottom or if Antonio's linked it, I think, near the top.
Is this the same as
okay.
this? Okay. And we can no longer reproduce. Adrian, do you want to just close this out then? We can also accept it, right? Seems like.
Well, we have. I mean, I guess we have the other one. If we're happy to have the discussion in the other one, that's fine.
I'm going to accept it and
okay.
Assume you're taking care of it.
Well, I assume the work is actually happening on the ticket that's linked.
Right.
I think it's a part of the work that the connection tracking stuff that Damon's been working on.
Okay, so do you mind adding the comment at the bottom? Referring to this in more detail, probably. Maybe it just needs a little bit more context.
Cool.
All right, one more. Impossible to notice without major delay when a container exits while the pod is in terminating state. Looks like, Tim, you're on this one. The very bottom. It was triage accepted, and this one's been a boomerang. Looks like it is a request, like almost like a feature request. What do we think we should do with this one?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, clearly I said something about it, but I'm trying to remember the state of it, what it really means.
Oh, this was the guy who had one container in a pod exiting and didn't like the way that affected the status.
Because they have a service or something like that, and they want to depend on the status.
So it was triage accepted. Do we want to just flip it again?
I'll go look at it. I'll go reread it again and see if I have a different opinion about it a year later.
And it's 9:20, so I think we should move on to the rest of the agenda. We have just 3 that are still in the triage bucket, so we can probably pick them up next 2 weeks from now. So let me just share this again. And we have Antonio, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to do a demo, but it's more important the gateway API review. We always had this complaint, gateway not getting traction and everything, and I always wanted to have something to work in kind, and I didn't find, so I took the same approach that we had for the load balancers, and I implemented gateway API HTTP route in cloud provider kind. The code is really ugly, but it passes conformance, it works, and this will help people that want to play with the features with API or to use CI. to get gateway in a small cluster like kind.
What are you using to route? Envoy?
Yeah, it's the only thing. I don't like templating, and we moved when I started cloud provider kind for the load balancers. We had in kind with Ben templating for HA proxy, but then when you start with all this, when we had to implement TCP route, UDP route, and things get complicated, and I started to use this XDS API, and well, I stick into that. At least they have the good thing with XDS is that they have validation, right? So you get your it's typed, so you cannot have this CB stuff. Ricardo is here, right? So he's there from that thing.
Okay.
And yeah.
So Antonio, any call to action here? Is this mostly an announcement? Do you want
Oh,
people to-
use it, play it, break it, add things. You know, Gateway is very large. I added support for experimental and standard, and it's missing a lot of features. And you know, it's if you want to get into Gateway and understand better and get your hands dirty, it's a project. It's simple to start. You don't break anything, and it's cool. And you may get a QCon, and people for these talks, people go a lot and ask a lot of questions. It's also good for this kind of topics, talks and DevRel. And
Okay, cool. Well, call to action is, hey, go, it's available. Go try it out and send Antonio all the bugs. Okay, so Rob, I think you're next, and you probably want presenter.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I think Dan, I'm afraid to botch this. So
The only way I've been able to grant it before is giving someone co-host, but there may be some other way that I've
yeah,
missed.
Dan, you might have to
and
do this.
That seems to have worked for me, whoever did that.
Yeah, I
Thank
did
you.
that. And yeah, I believe you have to be co-host to present.
Cool.
Rob, you have the
Hopefully cool. Hopefully everyone can see this. And hopefully I made these open to the world, right? Oh, I did not make these open to the world. 1 second. My bad. Let me open this up because that was not my intent. All right. Hopefully anyone who wants to can see this now. Like actually click through the link and get access to it. Not that there's that much exciting stuff in here. So wanted to run through Shane last meeting kind of covered like the high level idea of Gateway 1.4 and now ready to talk about it in some more detail. I appreciate Antonio and maybe others giving some good feedback on our PR that kind of shows the API diff for 1.4 already. What we have in this specific release are 3 things graduating to standard and 4 things that are either new or updated in 1.4. One of them is updated, 3 of them are new. And that kind of falls into what we've been doing so far of everything that's new in experimental channel needs to be paired with something that is going out of experimental channel. So in this case, we had 3 things that were new and 3 things that left. One of the big things that is coming in to standard, to GA this time is backend TLS policy. I want to give a huge shout out. Like this has been years in the making, but we had some really impressive work by Candace, Norwin, and Katarzyna to get this across the line in this release. We have multiple conformant implementations. It's been really, really great to see people working together on this one. So yeah, this is scope. We'll talk through each of them. The ones that I think are most critical for discussion today are the things that are graduating to standard. Everything else is more informational because it's experimental alpha, still time for things to change, iterate, whatever, but I would appreciate some feedback there. I will try and keep this time box to around 20 minutes. So yeah, leave it with that. This is API review PR. This is different than ones we've done in the past in that it is a full diff, open to feedback on this. In the past, we've just done diff over like the API directory to try and weed out the sheer amount of changes in docs and other things that you may not care about. But this is the full diff. If people have strong opinions, let us know. We'll do it differently next time. Yeah. So graduating standard, backend TLS policy, as I mentioned, this has been, Candace, Katarzyna, Norwin done fantastic work here. We have really thorough conformance test coverage now. This has been lingering in Gateway API for several years now. We managed to get to V1 Alpha 3. that gives you a sense of how many iterations this one took to get what we think is right now. But the fundamental purpose of backend TLS policy is to validate the certificate served by the backend. So this is primarily focusing on a connection between a gateway and a backend, a TLS connection between a gateway and a backend. And as you can see, the validation section has a CA certificate reference or list of them and ensures that the cert received matches one of those CA certs, or alternatively, there's an option to say I want to use system certs, but I'll leave that out for now. There's a host name field. This, as the name suggests, is, the certificate needs to have a subject name matching the host name. And I mentioned this here, you need to be able to, it's an instruction to the gateway that the SNI it should choose for the TLS connection is that. So abc.example.com. Alternatively, in addition to, we have a subject alt names field. This is newer, and it allows you to say, send a request with this SNI and accept a cert with any of the SANs in this list, right? So you could have foo.example.com, bar.example.com. This is particularly useful for certs that are using SPIFFE and their SANs may be in a different format, a SPIFFE format or something like that. You can express that this way. So you can say, send a request to abc.example.com, expect a cert that has a SAN for basically this service account or that service account or whatever in SPIFFE format. That is the probably the most common use case for why you would specify different SANs than just this field. That was probably a poor description of what this does. I think we've talked about this before in SIG Network meetings, but any concerns, questions, comments on this one?
Yeah, congratulations. We've been discussing this forever.
Yes. Yes, this has been a long road. So really appreciate the work by Candace to get this across and everyone else. Cool. Okay. The other one, this one is, where backend TLS is one that's taken ages to get across. This one is about the smallest kind of thing you could imagine. It's allowing rules to have names, route rules to have names. This is incredibly useful in the case that you as an implementation want to provide information about which rule in a route is invalid or conflicting, so you can say rule 1 conflicts with rule 2, or, instead of just like an index or something like this. The other use case for this is some people are using policy attachment and they want to attach a policy to a specific rule in a route. This kind of allows you to point to the rule named foo. This is, as you'd expect for any new field, this is optional. You don't need to specify it. We do require that if you specify a name, it is unique among other rule names that have been specified. But that's it. Yeah. Then the last thing getting to standard in this release is supported features on gateway class. This sounds, like a boring one. I think this is one of the ones that will fly under the radar, but make a significant difference going forward. For one of the ideas of Gateway API is that we, instead of doing the lowest common denominator, the set of features that every single implementation could support, we would intentionally add features to the API that we realize that some implementations would not be able to support. This has allowed us to add a lot of features that are very useful, but it has led to predictable confusion about, somebody tries to use, query param matching and then is surprised to see it's not working, right? And they don't understand why. Hopefully, if they're using, a reasonable implementation, that implementation will drop something in status to try and warn them. It's still not great. So the first step of this is every implementation will now populate the list of supported features. This name is tied to conformance tests that they support, basically. So every in conformance test, there's a set of feature names that the test is covering. And so to claim support, you need to be conformant for, and anything in this list. But what this really is driving towards is the idea that we'll be able to automate warnings. So if you're using tooling like Gateway Cuddle or some dashboards or anything like that, you'll be able to very easily see that you're configuring a feature that your gateway doesn't support. That's the goal, right? The other thing with this is it's now the primary source for conformance tests. Used to, when you're running conformance tests, just specify a long list of features that you claim to support. Now we just look at gateway class status instead when we're running conformance tests. Antonio?
Yeah, we tried to do this in, I don't know if in network policy or in services or on both, but I don't remember why. We found some issues, but I don't remember now what issues were about adding the supported features. I don't know if Dan also filed a cap about it.
We talked about this in network policy and ended up not doing it for various reasons. But the fact that network policy is not a CRD is one of the reasons why it didn't work well in network policy. So it could work better in gateway. We had also talked about doing this for load balancer features. And we didn't get around to it, but we didn't actually have a reason for not doing it. We just didn't.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I hope this ends up being a useful pattern. The goal is to litter these kind of feature names throughout our docs. So it's very clear you need a gateway that supports feature X. Make sure so you can self-check if you want to. We already have this, in our we have a page on our implementations page that basically shows this table of here's a list of features and here's the gateways that are conformant with each feature. So you can already kind of look up that way. But this is really trying to lean in on that and make it easier to discover and, particularly easy for tooling to discover, whether that's a dashboard or a CLI tool or whatever that can provide warnings. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's the end of things that we're trying to get to GA, standard, whatever in this cycle. Are there any concerns about those before I start talking about the new experimental ones? Cool. All right. All right. So new things. This one will be fun. Of all the ones that we have in this coming release as experimental, I can imagine this is going to be the one that attracts the most attention. And I have mixed feelings about it, but I think it's worth trying, at least an experimental. So there's a few problems we're trying to solve with the thing that we are calling default gateways. One of them is that we have a non-trivial set of users that are looking at migrating from Ingress to Gateway, and they, fairly consistently complain that, hey, I have to configure a gateway and I don't really want to, which I know that's a relatively small thing, but it may be a more concrete example is that I was actually just in a meeting yesterday with a customer who was complaining that they use a lot of off-the-shelf components, usually installed via Helm chart, and many of those components just bundle an Ingress resource, and they can just use it with their Ingress controller without question. It's really difficult to do that with Gateway right now because you kind of need to bundle a route and point to a gateway, but that gateway needs to be configurable. It requires more orchestration than I think anyone would like. So what this is working towards is a world where clusters include a gateway by default, and routes can say, I just want to attach the default gateway. I don't care what it is. Just expose this, please. Right? That's what this is getting towards. This, as you would expect, requires both sides to opt in. So on the route side, you say, hey, I just want to use the default gateways. You may be interested that it says gateways plural instead of singular. It would be probably easier to reason about if there were a single default gateway, but that one is hard to ensure because you have to do some weird cross-resource validation stuff. And two is really annoying if you want to transition between default gateways. So what we've done instead is we've said any gateway can say that it's a default gateway, and that will mean that it accepts any matching routes that want to attach to a default gateway. All the same rules still apply. So, gateways still have listeners. If a gateway only has like a UDP listener, HTTP routes aren't going to get attached to it. Oh, okay. I'm going to ignore HTTP3 for the time being, but for gateways that understand this, gateways support different route types, etc. All those same constraints still apply. So yeah, this is a loaded one. I am going to be very interested in the feedback we get on this. But yeah, interested in ideas from this group of what you think.
There is precedent, right, with storage classes and ingress, right, on settings.
Yeah, I mean, there is a default ingress class. So that there's some precedence there with the default ingress class. We used some admission hook. I'm the one who wrote it, so I should remember it. And I copied storage class actually. So, but however it works, it's the same as storage class. But there's always exactly one default. Well, there's 0 or 1 default ingress classes, but there's never more than one. So this is different than that.
Oh, you mean that there are multiple default?
I mean, this allows you to have multiple default gateways.
Yeah, so that was actually my question. Like, you want to have multiple defaults here, and I guess the scope says you can have a default for some namespaces and not for others.
Yes,
you took a big breath. Is that no?
kind of. So right now, a gateway still needs to describe for every listener what namespaces it supports, right? So it can say, but the default is the same namespace. So if this is your entire configuration with just a generic listener on, say, 80 or 443, it's only the default for that same namespace. You would actually need to go out of your way and say, I accept routes from any namespace, at which point you'd be a default that for everything in the cluster.
And when I'm writing my route, I need to say you just use default, and that's okay?
Yeah, that's it.
And so what happens if I have two defaults, which both think they claim a route?
It's fine, because by definition, you can attach 10 different gateways to a route. Doesn't matter.
Does that mean that anybody can write a gateway that claims somebody else's route?
Yeah.
Does that provide a sort of confused deputy to bypass access control rules that might have been put in? Or is the fact that you said use default gateways, you're saying, I don't care?
Yeah, so use default gateways itself is a what I would call a promiscuous mode. Yeah, it's inherently unsafe, right? You're saying I'm gonna attach to anything at all that wants me. Like, I don't care. Just I'm open to the world. And on the gateway side, you're saying, I'll accept anyone who wants to be attached to a default gateway. That I don't know how to add a safety mechanism to that, So one of the things here is we've debated the idea of, on the route side, you can say use default gateways that are in my own namespace, at least. But that seems to go against the whole notion of a default gateway. If it's in the same namespace, then just, point to it directly, right? Like, why do you, the idea of a default gateway, in my opinion, is that there's a cluster admin somewhere, maybe the person who provisioned the cluster, that provided you with a default gateway. And so what that means is, I want to expose this to the world, and I just want to use my default gateway. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
So the question, the reason I'm asking, when we look at things like default classes are not namespace resources generally, right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain elevation that you needed in order to define something as the default. And there's a heuristic for, if you have two defaults, which one wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody can create a gateway resource in any namespace, and in theory, they could run their own controller, then I'm trying to think through gateway class. Maybe they could find a way to get access to a service that they're not otherwise allowed to get access to by creating a gateway in their own namespace that declares itself a default, and then picking up other people's routes. You see where I'm going?
Well, but you would need to
have access to the namespace for your
Right.
controller to pick it
Yeah.
up. So
Sorry, I mean, couldn't I just in my own namespace create a gateway and say it is a default?
You could. So in that case, like, there's two things. If you're doing that, then presumably you could do that already, I guess. But I think that the thing that threw me off was you were saying, and you spin up your own controller, right? Your own controller. If you're deploying your own controller, then you very, very clearly need to have access to, or that controller to have access, which means you need to be able to grant that controller access to that other namespace.
I guess from my own namespace. Okay.
Yeah.
But it still feels like I could trick some shared implementation into exposing something that it's not supposed to expose. This is the whole internal name CVE too, right?
I think it's different though, in that By saying use default gateways on the route, you're basically saying I am open to the world. The world being my cluster. Anything in any gateway in my cluster can grab me, and that's okay. That's very dangerous, but the risk is when the route said use default gateways. It's not that some arbitrary gateway exposed it. It's that
Right. Okay, we don't need to rat hole on this.
Yeah.
One possible modulation of this would be yet another type, but a non-namespace type that is a default gateway, which says map this namespace selector to this gateway over here for the purpose of defaults.
Yep, that's fair.
It's yet more work, but it, let's get some legs on this and see what it looks like. But that's another way to think about it.
A cluster gateway, just so, but yeah, no, I mean it's fair. It's fair.
The overloading of terms is.
Well, it's not really a cluster gateway. It's a cluster default gateway. Like it's specifically saying, if somebody said, I want the default, here's the default for that somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
The CDG.
If we have a cluster scope gateway, do we want to limit it to the default, or do we want? Anyway, that's a rabbit hole. Yeah. All right. Well, I think there
Rob,
were
just a time check. You have like 2 minutes probably.
Okay, I'll be quick then. There's a mesh resource. Yay! It's basically the same concept as gateway class. There's a few things on it. If you want to like connect the dots back, supported features is also going to be present on this mesh resource.
Is it called X-Mesh?
Yes, every new experimental resource in Gateway API has the X prefix and sits in X K8s.io.
And it's called X. Oh,
yeah, okay. Yeah. That's because kubectl in general does awful when you have overlapping names. It just like seems to at random pick one and get anyway.
Yeah.
And so the real reason we're doing this, like there's some nice to have here, but we really want to have a standard way of defining how gateways connect to a mesh. This is step one of that. We expect to have some CA information in here and some other bits soon. There's a new XOF filter. I ran out of time for this one, but you can now express external auth in HP route as a filter. Really excited for this one. This will help close some gaps with Ingress Nginx in particular. And it's been one of the most requested things. This one I don't have time for. I'm not even gonna get there. This is a rehash of a problem around connection coalescing. Main thing is we changed how client cert validation works a bit to avoid issues with connection coalescing. This is a breaking change in 1.4, only an experimental. We make breaking changes there, but it should be safer. Hoping to target GA next cycle, and I'll leave it there. Yeah, thanks everyone. Any concerns? Like, if we aim for some lazy consensus, could we roll out a RC1 sometime early next week? I know we've already gotten some feedback from Antonio on the PR itself. Okay, cool. Thanks, Antonio.
Awesome. And then we have a last agenda. Dan, I think you want to take this one.
Oh, you're muted, Dan.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to actually, did that resize correctly?
Yeah, it's promising.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to skim the KEP board. Surya, are you still here? That sounds like no. I think this is still not necessarily going to progress for 1.35. Endpoint slice controller flexibility, it looks like that is closed now. Tim?
It might have just aged out. We haven't really discussed it in a while.
Okay, so still TBD, uncommitted?
I mean,
I talked with Lionel. And
I wasn't super excited about it in the first place, but we were going to discuss further to see if there was some formulation that made more sense to people.
yeah,
But
I
if
talked with
Yeah, this is-
Lionel that was pushing it, and he told me that it's not going to commit to it. So if it's the same that I'm thinking about, is the
Okay,
one
well,
proposed
then
by Lionel?
you can probably just move it to withdrawn, I guess, and cancel the in.
okay, so withdrawn. Okay. Oops. Deprecate v1 endpoints. Yeah, that is still making progress. The versioning is weird. There aren't really alpha, beta, and everything, but I just submitted another PR for that. So I don't know what to put here, but it is making progress.
I mean, what's the next, like, what's blocking us from saying, yep, it's deprecated?
So there were the KEP lists like 5 stages. And the current stage, we need to fix up all the EDE tests so that we can change the conformance criteria.
Okay. Okay.
So guess I mean, we could call that, well, but then there's another step after that. So yeah, I don't know what to put here. I guess we could just say nothing in 1.35.
Are you considering the removal of endpoints from conformance at the final step?
Am I considering what in 1.35?
The conflict was with Jordan and David on the endpoints definitely moving. So you said that one of the graduation, if I recall, was you are able to run a cluster without endpoints, and that will be conformance.
So
that's
everybody
the tension.
agreed that it was okay to eventually remove the endpoints controller from conformance. There is still debate about removing the endpoint slice mirroring controller.
Okay, that was the thank you for
But
comment.
that's not happening for 1.35 anyway. For 1.35, the goal is to have the EDE test that runs without the endpoints controller to prove to ourselves that yes, you can actually run a cluster this way and it will work, but it will still be non-conformant to do so. Cluster domain downward API. Do we know that?
I think they withdraw, right, Tim?
They did.
It was a shame. We got it down to a design that I actually thought was pretty clever, and then turns out to not be important because there's a better way of doing it.
All right.
We can put it, somebody maybe
Oops.
can try.
If somebody
It's
wants
most
to
of the
wake
design.
If somebody wants to wake it up, they can wake it up, but we're not going to do it without somebody who really needs it.
Yeah. Cluster domain pod API. Did that make it to
Yeah.
alpha?
Wasn't that the one we just
Yeah,
said?
that's
No, that was.
The other one was downward API. I think.
Yeah, they're the same.
Cluster
maybe
domain
they
the same.
fork
4969.
Maybe
Oh,
that's a
here-
pull
yeah,
request. That's a pull request instead of a feature. It shouldn't be in this list.
right. Okay. TLS credentials and gRPC probe. Did that age out or did it get withdrawn?
I thought this was implemented. Oh no, TLS credentials. Oh, never mind.
no.
There was
it
TLS.
was-
Yes.
Did it? So, yeah, anyone know?
I think there was a pull request and we asked it to file a cap and then nobody followed. That's my impression, my thoughts. No, that's what I remember.
So what do we want to do? Just, well, I guess we don't have much
Remove
time,
it
so we
and
can just think about it later. And I realized I skipped row 2 here. Allow setting any FQDN. That one made progress, but did it get beyond alpha?
Good question. Let me
I
look.
guess if it was targeting alpha, and what is it doing for?
Hostname override is
So it looks like the code merge. So it
it's
is,
currently alpha.
yeah.
It should. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't go beta. We just need somebody who's on it to do the changes.
Okay, I guess I'll poke people on the, yeah, I can poke people on the ones that we don't know about, I guess. Adrian, relaxed validation for service names that did make it to alpha.
Yeah. So we can go to beta, I think.
Actually, Dan, I had a question about number 3. Isn't that withdrawn? Because it looks like everything got aged out. So if people want it, wouldn't they like reopen it or something?
I wasn't sure. I guess we can call it withdrawn. Sure.
Just to make sure the board is like cleaner.
So sorry, Adrian, you were saying it is alpha for 1.35. You think beta for 1.35?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Make Kubernetes aware of the load balancer behavior. I already updated this row. Yeah, that is ready for cleanup in 1.35. For same node traffic distribution, that can go to GA in 1.35. DRA resource claim status, is that still beta? That didn't go GA with the rest of DRA?
No, it got called because we don't have implementations. But
Okay.
Lionel told me that he wanted to work on this in this cycle, and John Benamarik is also that is driving the whole DRA thing is also aware. So the goal is to make it GA this cycle.
Okay. Endpoints we already said. Relaxed validation for service names we did. Oh, updates to kube proxy backend supports. That's the one that we were talking about before. That's like, what do we do about IPVS and NF tables and all that? So yeah, that needs review, but hopefully that can go alpha in 1.35. And is there anything open?
You have the IP cider validation, right? The one that you are changing the.
Yeah, where is that?
Yeah, I saw it. Scroll so fast.
Yeah,
sorry.
okay, beta in 1.36. We wanted to go 3 releases with the warnings before we changed the validation. So
The deprecate IPVS one isn't listed. The spin-off from the kube proxy backends.
oh, no, I think I added it, but it probably doesn't have.
Right, probably doesn't have the labels or whatever these things are.
Where what's the number?
You can just type
Let's say.
IPVS, it'll find it.
You're
not in the
5495?
search. You're in the ad. Look in the filter at the top.
Filter. Oh, sorry. You're assuming that I already. Yeah, I think I actually had it.
Okay.
So the number's 5495.
5495.
Quick time check. We're at time, so probably this is the last one we can.
All right. Yeah, I'll add it afterwards.
Cool.
Okay, I think that brings up to the hour. So thanks everyone for participating, and see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone.
All right.